Thanks for having me, Max. Always a pleasure to be here.
Get your thoughts on these 100-year bonds that governments are issuing. Argentina's came out. It's down already, I think, 70%, the 100-year bond and collapsing. What's this all about?
Yeah, so we're obviously seeing this phenomenon of negative interest rates. It's spread. It's now become common wisdom, and I think even sort of a mainstream idea. So yes, the vanilla analysis is more negative interest rates means everything else becomes a form of money, which includes your argument for silver, and why would you want to own any central banking currency? However, the ideas that I tend to think about and come up with always lead me to going against the herd when it becomes mainstream. And I'm not sure if you're aware, Max, but a lot of the ideas that we have been proposing and you have been proposing since you're 90 years old and have been doing this for 50, 60 years are now becoming mainstream. So when I look at the negative interest rate phenomena and whatever it is, 20 or $30 trillion in bonds now, I try to think about it and say, well, what is the invisible hand argument? What is the actual thing that's taking place, the dynamic that's leading to this being a plausible policy for an academic or an economist? And what I've started to consider is whether the negative interest rates are telling us that we're just going to see a rapid decline in the world's population. And if you follow my thought on this for a moment, think about it like the world's money is something that has a value per capita, the stock of money. If the value of the money is self-deleting at a rate of 4% a year, but the rate of population is decelerating at a larger rate, then the amount of money per capita can still grow or even remain the same. So really, it's almost like the invisible hand's solution to the problem of wealth inequality. Because the people cooperating every day and waking up and trying to toil for meritocratic purposes will be rewarded a larger share of that negative yielding money, while the people that are just sitting on their money are going to lose their share. So I think that may be an interesting way of thinking about it. A more pessimistic way would be that perhaps the negative interest rates are predicting a major decline in population due to war, or perhaps some kind of a geopolitical war. But I'm starting to come around to this view more because I'm not really seeing how they can reverse these interest rates without causing massive nominal deflation, which is what they are trying to avoid at all costs because of the credit cycle and the credit debt outstanding and all that.
So the old axiom, price precedes news. So these prices, if they don't conform to any kind of known policy or academic model in real time and current, but are they discounting something? Is the invisible hand moving in a way that we will find out at some point in the future what this is all about? This often happens in markets. And price precedes news is an old, Wall Street axiom. So you're suggesting that the news coming down the pike here could be some kind of rapid population decline.
The facts, yeah. So if it's, think of it like a game where there's a bunch of people in a circle, and the way you join the game is if you're born, and the way you leave the game is if you die, and you start off with a certain number, and then everyone passes around an apple. That's money, and everyone gets one bite at a time. And so if the amount of people joining the game, being born, is less than the people leaving the game, even though this apple is shrinking with each move, everyone's still getting the same bite. So perhaps that's what we're about to go through. And I don't believe the UN figures on population. I was doing some work on this, and I found that the fertility rate in the Philippines declined from 3 to 2, so 3 kids per family to 2 in just 15 years, the last 15 years, whereas in the United States that took 200 years to happen. So we are seeing a decline in population. I don't think you can trust the UN figures, which are really just meant to juice all of their projects and their goals. And I think that if you look at voting numbers, if you look at the fact that no one's really having babies, younger generation people forming households, who's to say that the world's population can't be 20% less than it is today, or 30% less in 100 years. I think that's totally plausible. So perhaps that's how the Keynesians are going to keep control of the fiat money system.
We certainly have, looking at these events that are sweeping the globe, whether it's ecological events, whether it's this kind of these violence picking up around the world. We have, could be outbreak of Ebola or something like that, contagions. It seems ripe for something to happen that would possibly threaten the population numbers. But the price of these bonds trading at 200-300, we're talking to a guest from Liechtenstein recently, a 300-year high, basically.
Yeah.
It's just a bond bubble. At some point, it pops. And then it causes a mass die-off because of the poverty it creates.
Yeah.
In other words, it's a chicken and egg situation. Is it telegraphing something, or is it a bubble that when it pops, it will create the scenario as you're describing it? There's a lot of, in markets, there's a feedback mechanism. It's hard to determine where you are on the continuum. Is it a reaction, cause and reaction, or which way time is flowing? I don't want to get too esoteric here, but could it just be this massive bubble?
It is a bubble, but I just don't see how we ever see a 2008 style credit crisis that's systemic, given all the control and manipulation that's going on. And I think that if we see a breakdown of the power structures that are now fully in control and fully in the manipulative function for our attention, for what we know, for our privacy, I think the last thing we're going to care about is what the interest rate is going to be at on the bonds, because it's all going to manifest through deflation. And so if we have massive deflation, then the system will work itself out. I actually think that, I don't know why, but at this point, I still can't see that materialize. I think that what they did in 2008 was change the rules of the game, and they've cemented their dominance over that, that method of play. And that's why there always are these puts in the market. So perhaps they're just killing our population. I mean,
right. By puts, you mean like the Greenspan put. In other words, those with the
Bernanke put, the Yellen put, the Chinese put, the Draghi put.
The risk is different for the average person who's entering out.
I just think maybe the story will be written such that the academics proselytizing fiat money will have literally killed off our population.